Tough love, you are likely the greatest problem in your business. And if you don't move up as a CEO, your business will be stuck underneath you forever. The good news, you can acquire new skills as a CEO. And if you do, your business is going to thrive. Today, we're going to lay out 5 skills you need to acquire in 2025. I'm Mike Workington. This is Run a Profitable Gym. My guest today is Ian Smith. He runs Mountain Speed, Strength, and Fitness in Colorado. Now, he got into a DM conversation with Chris Cooper about the skills that he's gained after working with a mentor. The list was so good, we're going to share it with you today so you can level up as a CEO. Don't forget to subscribe because we have more shows like this with top gym owners all the time. So Ian, welcome. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Mike. How are you?
I'm excellent, and I can't wait to dig into this because Chris messaged and said this list is great. You got to talk to Ian, so we got you on the show, and we're going to help some gym owners. Now, you DM Chris, so these skills obviously had a big effect on your business. What are some of the numbers that you can throw at me to show the effect that this had in terms of metrics?
Yeah, the biggest one, like even just going over our top line revenue, we grew exponentially this year. We focused a lot on our semi-private offering rather than our group stuff. And we grew our top line by 80%.
80?
And, since 80. Yeah.
Wow.
And so our best month last year is hopefully a number that we won't even see this year. Hopefully we'll be above it.
Okay. And so you said, is your monthly revenue grown significantly as well?
Yes. Yeah. So since starting with Two Brain, when we started, we were only doing $800 a month. Yep. And now we're knocking on the doorstep of $25,000 a month.
Really? That's a monster increase. What has that done for your life?
Well, I just got to hire my first full-time staff member. And so having a lot more time, like I got to play with my kids for an hour and a half this morning. And so awesome. That's immeasurable. Yeah,
I'm sure. That's it. You're doing this all in, you said 900 square feet of space. Is that right?
Yeah. So our overall space is, about 1,600, but our actual training floor is just about 900. Wow. So not a big spot.
So we're going to talk about some skills that are, inside ethereal things that, don't necessarily have metrics attached. But for you, these skills combined for an almost 25x increase, or probably a greater than 25, almost 30x increase in revenue, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Over a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay. So listeners, this stuff is emotional stuff, but those are the metrics that show you what this did at ground level for Ian in Colorado. So I'll ask you, we're going to go with the first one, objective reflection. This is, taking emotion out of your business. How the heck do you do that?
I mean, that's honestly a really hard question because everything we do is so passionate. Like we put our emotions on our sleeve. Everything we do is kind of a reflection of us. So it's really hard to break out of that, but it's got to start with data. If we're not tracking numbers, if we're not measuring things, it's so hard because then we're just going off vibes and how we feel. And so especially when things are going really fast, things are spinning, leads are coming in, people are talking to you, people are happy, people are mad. How do we reframe all of that? And the Marines, they taught us OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. And with Two Brain, I feel like it's a little bit more of kind of measure, analyze, decide, and act. So it's just giving you if things are going too fast, we're grabbing onto one thing at a time, working through that, and then grab onto the next.
It's really hard to not have emotion when you're an owner operator and you're seeing these people and you're seeing the sweat on the floor and the chalk on the barbell and all these other things, because if you don't train people, you don't eat, right? As an owner operator, this is intensely emotional. So being able to step back from that is super difficult. I love what you said there about data, because one of the things for me, someone said to me back in the day, how's your gym doing? I said, great. He said, how do you know? I was like, I don't know, it kind of feels good. But when I looked at the metrics, it wasn't that. That was me running on emotion because it was a full class. Everything was great. But guess what? All those were discounted people. Some of them weren't paying. I hadn't followed up. The financials were a ruin. And when I looked at data, it wasn't going that well. And I needed to find a mentor to help me fix that. So that's another thing that I realized, and you tell me if this worked for you. I struggled to get into the data by myself. It took a mentor to track this, look at this, analyze this. This number is not so great. Here's how we improve it. And here's what we can do. That helped me be more objective. Did that happen for you too?
Yeah, absolutely. Both over the short term, month to month, and the long term, annual planning, where we need to go. It definitely helped with both of those.
Yeah, so that's a huge one. Listeners, if you're struggling with the emotion of being an owner operator in business, rely on data. And if you can't look at the numbers yourself, or if you still can't take that step back, an objective perspective from outside your business by an expert who's been there can be all the difference in the world and takes the emotion out of it. Instead of being angry about that staff member who didn't put the toilet paper roll on, you can look at some metrics and have some tactics to improve them. So that's a huge one. Now, this one is big. This is like, I think you called this a superpower before we talked before the show. Focus. How do you improve your focus?
Man, that's a hard question.
It's so hard because you can think about anything, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm Marine, so like
Yeah.
everything goes back to shooting things. But like, is your focus kind of like a shotgun blast, or is it a laser beam?
Yeah.
So if you're just speckling all over the place and your focus is scattered, we need to wrangle that in. And then if your focus is kind of a laser, like it is really targeted, you know what to do, then we still need help on making sure we're pointing it at the right targets. And again, that goes to like having a coach, having a mentor to break down that data with you and showing you like, hey, like, people aren't staying at your gym super long. What's going on with that? Like, what's going on there? And so like digging deeper into those.
Yeah, because it's common for as entrepreneurs, you can get a list that kind of runs horizontally where you have all these things and it's kind of this giant to-do list where you're spinning plates, where you've got all these things going on at once. And it's impossible to work down the list because you're just kind of looking from side to side across the horizon, never focusing on that one thing. And there's so many things that you could do. What I found with a mentor was the person would say, we've analyzed all these spinning plates. That one right there is wobbling the worst. And if you don't fix that right now, you're in big trouble. Here's exactly what you do to fix it. And as a military guy, I'm guessing that kind of approach makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's an example of a spinning plate or something that a mentor helped you focus on? Was there an area? Because your revenue grew from $900 to $25,000. How did you what was a target that you were focused on with laser beams?
Yeah. So like I was even talking to you before this started, like we kind of changed our name from Mountain Speed and Strength to Mountain Speed, Strength and Fitness. So when we first opened up, we were only really focused on working with athletes, but we're in a small town. There's only one high school. The well is not very big,
Okay.
but we noticed like the clients that paid the most and stayed the longest were actually their parents. And so now we've really shifted our focus rather from just athletes in the lacrosse football sense to more Colorado athletes, like people that want to go skiing and biking and hiking and snowshoeing and all that type of stuff, and really maintain their fitness so that they can succeed and do Colorado things.
So it's like lifestyle fitness, and you've identified essentially another niche in the market and focused on adjusting your business and its name to appeal to that. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So listeners, that's a great example of a tactical play where a mentor says, hey, you've got these great kids here. How about their parents? Can you help them too? Yes, I can. Maybe we'll switch this name here and change our marketing and branding focus a slight bit. And all of a sudden you have a whole new market. Revenue goes for Ian from 900 to 25K a month. And away you go. And he's spending the mornings with his kids and hanging out with me rather than coaching classes. So that's an incredible one. Chris Cooper has talked about focus. I'll point out, if you're struggling with this topic, pick up The Golden Hour. It's Chris Cooper's most recent book. It is a focus manual. It will teach you how to focus and get things done. The concept is do one thing every day in the first 60 minutes to grow your business, and then keep doing it. He'll tell you exactly what to do in that period. We'll put the link in the show notes. Go on Amazon and get that focus book. Have you read that, Ian, or have you just living it?
The Golden Hour?
Yeah.
I have not read it. I've put out all of like the smaller forums that he's said about it, and like it is just incredibly impactful. Like if people aren't doing it, like that is the easiest thing that they could do to really change how many leads they're getting per month and how they're spending their time.
Yeah. And so what Chris does in our private group, and he even did in a public group, he has golden hour challenges where he gets up every morning, tells people exactly what to do. You don't even have to read the book. He just did it. So if you want to go to Gym Owners United, that link is also in our show notes. You can look back in November. He ran that last year. You could actually do the challenge on your own. If you want the shortcut, get the book. But he does show up every day, and he told Ian exactly, do this in your first hour today, and away you go. So that's the challenge that he's run. Let's go on to the next one. And this one I find, and this one's going to be interesting. So tact and de-escalation. This is super interesting coming from a guy who was in the Marines and probably could escalate if needed.
Yeah, I mean, like tact, like that's a word that they taught us, like essentially in boot camp. I had never really heard that before then. Essentially, how do you talk to higher ups? How do you talk to people that you are serving underneath? And so in business, I would change the how it's used a little bit to being more
Mhm.
like service minded. So how can we, even if it's a hard conversation, how can we still leave this conversation, feeling empowered, feeling good about what's going on? And like, even if it's a hard conversation, a lot of times people are still going to respect it.
Mhm.
Saying like, we were running a nutrition thing for only our members a couple weeks ago, and we had a member asking if he could bring in his family to do it. And it's like, so this, and I just explained to him like, this is just going to be something for our members. We highly support their, nutrition and their lifestyle, but this is, a line that we were putting in the sand, and
Mhm.
he actually really liked that we were doing that. He liked that we were setting that boundary so that we were keeping this thing for the people it was designed for.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And has Full Metal Jacket of the Marine Corps has that lied to me? Is that a jelly donut in your footlocker? Like that there was no tact in that one, but it seems like you've acquired
No,
a different version.
no, I love that movie, but no, that's it's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's the exact
The things that
opposite
were
of
screamed
tact.
at me, I would not recommend you screaming at your clients.
this this is just it. So that's it's a classic movie reference that I hope you listeners will get. But the opposite of that drill sergeant, which was an epic character in that movie, is communication without escalating and blowing things up. Did you say that you are just about to hire your first staff member?
We did in December.
How important do you think tact will be in dealing with staffing things? Because for me, that was always a bit of a struggle because, again, you're emotional, you're ramped up, you didn't clean the thing, and I'm mad. That's going to be important for you coming up now with a new staff member.
Yeah, I mean, it's like definitely like I'm used to leading small groups,
Mm-hmm.
but communication is something that we have to take accountability for. We have to be responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
And so building up our toolbox, whether it's from, talking to other business owners or reading books, like we have to take ownership of that so that our message is conveyed in the way that we want it to be
Mm-hmm.
rather than the first way that comes to mind.
Yeah. And one of the things that Chris talked about when you had said this to him, he thinks about it as dominoes, and you have these, triggers that set off this string of emotional dominoes. And if you're not careful, everything spirals out of control. And all of a sudden you're yelling at each other and everyone's mad and people are saying things they don't mean. Whereas sometimes if you can find a way to put your hand in front of a domino and stop the things from falling, you can step back and say, wait a second, Ian, what are you actually saying to me here? And I can sit and think about a little bit like, am I just reacting or am I emotionally reacting or am I even listening? And then you can start to get through it. And we had a great speaker, Chris Voss, who's a former FBI hostage negotiator. Here's the Two Brain Summit, a digital one that we did during COVID times. He talked about how to pop a big red balloon of emotion between two people by asking questions to let the air out of that balloon. Really interesting book if you want to pick that up. And again, we had him speak to gym owners at the Two Brain Summit. I think that was 2021 or 2020. I'm not sure. One of those two. And he spoke online about exactly this, and it's going to help you in any relationship going forward. So I'd recommend that for you for sure, because Ian's hit on a big one here. Tact is always going to help you in business. Here's one that I really like because it's very easy when we're talking about spinning plates to stare at things right in front of us. Forward thinking. How have you used that to improve your business?
Yeah. So like essentially like how did I know I could afford this coach,
Mm-hmm.
this full-time person? It was scary. Like,
Yeah.
that's pay that's coming right out of my pocket, but you're trading resources for time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all about how you use that time. And so using the golden hour, I tracked my metrics. And so I knew that if I spent my time marketing and specifically doing that golden hour structure, the return on my investment was over $100 an hour. And if
Oh.
I'm paying a coach really well and I'm paying them, on average 45 to 55 an hour, even though I'm paying my coach well, like I can still make that up as long as I'm taking actionable steps. So it's scary. But it's something that's already being paid off. Like our gym is already growing. Like this is our biggest month that we've ever had, and we're still taking off. I'm able to act on these things and grow the business and actually work on it rather than in it.
So you relied on data again. So, you took your golden hour and you just said, like, this is a cool stat that you actually know in that golden hour, you know exactly what your effective hourly rate is. And that's calculated by the money that's returned for the time that's put in. You know that. And then you looked at your data. And this is a really cool part because we have this value ladder formula, and listeners of the show will have heard me talk about this before. The simple version: if you can make $100 an hour doing something and you can buy some time to get that hour for $20, you're way ahead. So if I can say, hire a cleaner, this is the easiest one, hire a cleaner to scrub the bathrooms and so forth for $15, $20 an hour, but I can use that time to do a personal training session and make 75 or 80 for the business. What a huge win. And yet, when I was running my physical location, I scrubbed toilets a lot when I should have been selling personal training. So, Ian, you've done the opposite, the golden hour. How did you do the math on that? Did you just look at like golden hour at the end of you say, how much money did I make during this hour? How did you track that number and make that projection?
Yeah, so I did the golden hour pretty religiously for a month in October. And then I just calculated all the front end revenue that we got from that. And, there had really been a very slow month before that. Like September had been really slow. October it really started to kick up. And so I knew like it's hard to know like how much would have come in, but what we did find out is like putting more effort got more reward out of it. And so just kept all that data, took all the front end revenue, and then did the math on it for how many hours I spent doing the golden hour and how much revenue came in because of that.
Wow. So again, listeners of the show, people say, oh, this is nonsense. Is it a mistake? Like, is this an exaggeration to say you can actually grow your business measurably in 60 minutes a day?
Yes, absolutely.
You can do it. It can be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, I never
thought
like I would
nonsense.
build my, yeah, like, and it's hard. Like I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I'd build my business with blogs because I'm not that good of a writer,
Yeah.
but just the sheer act of making something that is talking about a subject and putting on a public place like a public Facebook group, or in this case, my community's Facebook group, and just doing that weekly and having something interesting to talk about that's not an advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. It's just like getting your message out there in a way that's not a pushy ad. And that it made a big difference for us.
And that's a good example of forward thinking where you're not playing the short game necessarily of like, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. You're saying, here's some valuable content. I'm trying to help you out. We're building a slow relationship and building my audience. And eventually you're going to come to my gym because I've made myself the obvious choice, to quote Jonathan Goodman's new book. But that's what you're essentially doing. That's problem solving, forward thinking, rather than looking 6 inches in front of you. You're looking 6 months ahead of you and you're building leads and warming them and all that stuff. So that's a great example. Another thing might be a classic example of this is my summer revenue sucks. How can I fix this in January rather than going through another year and saying my summer revenue sucks? And that would be like, January, I'm going to put a kids program into place. I'm going to start marketing in March and April. I'm going to have people signed and committed by May. I'm going to have my program filled with kids in June, July, August. Summer revenue is going to be PR, not a down. So that's another example of forward thinking. And as you know, if you're struggling to see what's ahead, a mentor has that guide because a mentor has been where you are and can point that stuff out and say, that's a pitfall. That's the right direction. Let's do this. And away we go. So we'll move on from the forward thinking one. This is a very cool one that we're going to finish with. Abundance mindset as opposed to scarcity mindset. What does this unlock for a gym owner?
I think just another level of confidence. And again, like it goes back, like everything we do is so emotional. And so if we can feel confident in our abilities and our skills and our mindset, it just makes everything just feel so much more smooth. And so like, I don't have to try and get every single client. Not every single client's a good fit for my gym. Like I'm doing a semi-private. It's, relatively high ticket compared to group training. I know how to sell it. So I know how to like, if someone's interested in, personal training or groups, like I know how to get them to bridge and understand the value that we give. But there are occasionally going to be folks that like we are just too expensive for, or, maybe it was my pitch and they didn't see the value in it. But I don't have to overthink and overanalyze every single word that I said, and I can move on from it.
Mm-hmm. How you see you're in a smaller town, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many people?
Evergreen has about 9,000 people in it.
Are there other gyms in town?
Yes, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's tempting in that environment to say, I need every client because there's only 9,000 people. And you know, it's interesting. I spoke to a gym owner on the East Coast, Matt Michaud, and just yesterday actually, and he's in a smaller, it's a little bit bigger area. It's a tri-city area on the East Coast, but still similar, like not a million people, like smaller numbers. And what he did was he was really working hard to put this abundance mindset in place and reach out to other gym owners and realize we're not fighting with each other. We're fighting with the couch and the screen and the food and the other things. And we're trying to find people who are not moving. There's enough for everyone. He ended up, some of those gyms actually closed down and he sent the messages and said, like, heartfelt, like, dude, I'm really sorry this happened. Is there any way I can help or help out your members? And eventually he did his duty as a gym owner. And these members came over to his gym and kept working out, which is like, what a great service because they were lost without their fitness home, right? And I've seen other gym owners in small areas, like, you know, Chris Cooper's town is not super huge either, working together because if people contact each other and band together, you can do much more to raise general awareness about fitness than fighting over, you know, 150 gym clients, right? Have you, so has that been your experience in a small town, Ian?
Yeah, like again, like I'm fairly confident with how we do things. And so
Yeah.
like we actually did get a new gym owner who opened up a couple miles away from us. And I brought her coffee and
Oh, that's
said
cool.
congratulations. And we chatted and she was asking for tips and I was giving them to her. Like, you know, it was all the same things that we're kind of talking about now. But, you know, like I remember being there and not
Yeah.
knowing what to do. And just having someone reach out and kind of that feeling like you're not in this alone.
Wow. I mean, and as you're doing this, like when did you do this about? Is it last year?
Yeah, I think I brought her coffee about 2 months ago.
Yeah, so 2 months ago. So as you're doing this, you're literally going from $900 a month or what $800 a month to $25,000 a month, and you're seeing this is kind of the abundance mindset, the confirmation you would need that this is probably the right move. Like your business didn't go under because you went down the street and brought coffee to a new gym owner.
Yeah.
But that's the thought. Like it sounds silly when I say it like that, but that's kind of the thought that you think sometimes when someone opens up, you feel hostile and you want to fight with them. It's not the abundance mindset. That's a scarcity mindset. And a good example of this too is called the gap in the gain, where you're not thinking about how far it is toward your goal. You're thinking about how far you've progressed already. There's some little mindset things that are super important. And these small skills that Ian's talked about as a CEO, they become massive. So Ian, I'll ask you a final question here. What do you think will happen to a listening gym owner if they take these 5 skills and put them into practice over the next year? What's the horizon look like for them?
I think it would do so much good for your mental health, your confidence, and your revenue and your bottom line to practice these skills. And even if you just take away one thing from this, just do your golden hour.
Would a mentor help someone with this process? Because you can certainly learn these skills on your own, but I struggled with it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't know how many years or decades it would have taken me to
Mm-hmm.
learn these skills if I hadn't had someone showing me the ropes.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same way. And so that's your shortcut, listeners. If you want to learn these skills, we've given you some resources. You can check out the Golden Hour book, will be in the show notes. You should get that thing. If you want to accelerate things, stomp the accelerator, book a call. Talk to a mentor. We'll tell you exactly how we can help you build your business. Ian, thank you so much for being here. I want to talk to you in another year and see where things have gone because it looks like you're on an upward trajectory.
Sounds great.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. That was Ian Smith. This is Run a Profitable Gym. I'm your host, Mike Borkman. Hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening on your way out the door.